Gratitude is the pause that cherishes the view. When gratitude becomes our foundation, abundance becomes our reality. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. The real gift of gratitude is that the more grateful you are, the more present you become. May we have a grateful heart today and every day as we remember every good thing that the Lord has blessed us with. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dave. That was an excellent introspection. Okay, next up we have Harry Zuloff. Harry's our membership committee chair, and he will be introducing today's guests, and we'll also talk about our Fill the Chairs membership drive.
Good afternoon. I'm going to introduce the guests and their host, if they would stand and then remain standing until we have all of them announced, and we'll give them a real welcome. First off is David Tate of Habitat, Bruce Swanson, the host. Robbie Hairston, he doesn't have a host, but he's here all the time. I see him all the time. Aaron and Neil McNally, guests of David and Sherry Harton. And Nick Ryder, our speaker. Okay, so let's give him a welcome, okay? Thank you, thank you. I'll just say a few words about our membership drive. As you may know, I am a graduate of The Ohio State University. All right, here's my $2, okay? All right, it's a brag. But, you know, at Ohio State, they have this marching band, and it's called the Best Damn Band in the Land. Actually, I'm going to find out about that this Saturday against Texas. But anyway, I digress. I just want to say that I think that this club is the best damn Kiwanis club in the land.
I'll second that, Harry. All right. On our agenda, we are supposed to do our new member inductions, but Don Wilson has not arrived yet. So we're going to ask Dr. Lee Learman if he'll come up and do his autobiography for us, and then we'll do the new member inductions next. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be with you. And I have to thank Pegram for this honor of spending just a few minutes talking about my autobiography. And I scared him a little bit this afternoon when I mentioned that it only starts in 1904. And we shouldn't be worried about the 5-minute limits because there's so much to say. I'm just kidding. But I will begin in 1904. And that's when my grandfather fled to the United States from Ukraine with his family when he was just 4 years old. He grew up to become a farmer and then an insurance salesman. And my other grandparents were born in the U.S. Their parents immigrated from Germany in the late 1800s. My parents grew up in Philadelphia, where my father was the first in his family to attend college. And after serving in the Navy, he and my mom moved briefly to Dahlgren, Virginia, where he was doing some consulting for the Navy. I was born at the closest hospital at the time in Fredericksburg, Virginia, before our family settled in Los Angeles when I was 5, and that's where I grew up. One of my earliest memories of medicine came when my younger brother, Rick, fell down a flight of stairs and fractured his skull at age 4. He was rushed to the hospital in a coma, and these were the days before CAT scans and MRIs. So instead, there was a vigil, which unfolded in the hours and days it took him to wake up. Well, he fully recovered, and he grew up without any limitations except that bump on his head that you can still feel. And as he grew up, it was clear that he had inherited most of our family's athleticism genes, not only playing basketball and volleyball, but knowing each team's statistics from memory. And I thought he would grow up to work for a basketball team. That was his childhood wish. But instead of the NBA, he got an MBA and retired recently, younger than I'm retiring from, not that we're competitive. He just retired from a successful career in finance. So bravo to you, Rick, from emerging from that coma. Well, I grew up pretty quickly when our parents divorced at age 16. I worked at McDonald's, eventually becoming a manager. I know a number of us started in food services. Anyone else started in food services? A lot of people, right? And that job, it paid for my tuition at UCLA, which was not nearly as expensive then as it is now. As a junior, I entered an off-campus program focused on developmental disabilities, which combined coursework, fieldwork, and research. It was there that I met Beverly, my partner in life, since our first date on Halloween in 1980. I enjoyed this immersion program in disabilities so much that I created a gap year between then and my senior year as I worked for pay as one of the program's coordinators. I was a teaching assistant for classes in research and statistics and disabilities, and I found that I loved the role of the teacher, and I wanted to make that a part of my career as well. During my senior year, I worked as a secretary in the neonatal ICU at UCLA, watching the nurses and physicians care for premature and critically ill babies confirmed my desire to become a doctor. I was accepted first to Northwestern's medical school and a few months later to Harvard Medical School, where I entered into an MD PhD program. They were just getting started, focused on social and behavioral science. Bev joined me in Boston, completed her graduate studies in special education, and began her career working with adolescents with severe autism. Those years in Boston were really formative for us. We built long-lasting friendships and even had the surreal experience of introducing the Harvard undergraduates to B.F. Skinner, the father of behaviorism himself, when he came out of retirement to speak to the tutorial group that I led. And boy, did they ask him a bunch of questions about how he raised his kids. After 8 years in Boston, we moved back to California to continue our careers and raise our family, continue my training and residency. Bev chose to be a stay-at-home mom then. And during the 4 decades of our marriage, we've been blessed with 2 wonderful and accomplished daughters, their spouses, and 2 young grandchildren so far. Professionally, I've been fortunate to serve across the full spectrum of what we call academic medicine, as a busy clinician caring for high-risk OBGYN patients, as an educator and national program director, as an NIH-funded researcher, as a department chair, and now for the past 6+ years as a medical school dean. I've been truly fortunate across those years. Outside of work, as some of you know, music has always been a passion. I've sung in choirs since high school and now perform with the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra Chorus, as well as some of the other folks in this room. And so that's been a constant. Giving back to the community has also been a constant. In California, I volunteered at free clinics and nursing homes. In Indianapolis, I worked on perinatal quality standards with public health leaders. And here in Roanoke, I've been proud to support our several community organizations, including serving alongside you as a Kiwanian. Looking back, I see a thread of resilience and partnership and service that run through my journey, and I'm deeply grateful for the people and the opportunities that have shaped my life. And I'm honored now that I can share my journey with you today. So thank you very much.
That was excellent. Fascinating journey since 1904. Thank you, Lee. All right. So Don Wilson has arrived, and we're going to ask him to come to the podium and do our new member inductions for us today. We're excited. We have 2 folks that will be inducting.
Who is it?
Melissa and Mike Francis.
Okay, Mike Francis. Okay, I'm not very prepared like I normally am. I just walked in the door.
This is fresh. And one of the freshest things we could do as Kiwanis is to invite a friend, a neighbor, a coworker, a family member, a stranger on the street to join you for a Kiwanis luncheon, because this fellowship that we have is just top of the line as far as service organizations in Roanoke. We call that sharing the K when we do invite a guest, and we're indebted to a couple of Kiwanians today. Gene Bullendorf is sponsoring Melissa Woodson. Melissa, if you'd come forward. Gene, if you'd come around front. And Fred Jeter is sponsoring Michael Francis.
What? With some
Did I
glasses.
pronounce that correctly? Francis.
Do you have any coffee over here?
I would like it. I don't
Gene,
have it.
I'll start with
In
you.
that
Would you
room.
introduce Melissa, please?
This is my very tall friend, Melissa. I look up to her a lot. She is currently the executive director of Roanoke Area Ministries, who many of you are very familiar with. But Melissa and I go way back to her YWCA days, which is when I first met her. And she is just a real powerhouse. And the two of us have had kind of parallel careers in some ways. And so we've been great friends and mentors throughout that entire process. And she has a big heart, which is something we really value in Kiwanis.
Hey, Brad, introduce Michael, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to cheat and have some notes, but I'd like to introduce everyone to Mike Francis. Come over here. Over the past couple of months, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Michael here at the Kiwanis meetings. And Mike was first invited to Kiwanis through WFXR, I understand, Ben Oldham at the radio station. And Mike's been attending the meetings regularly since about June. So Mike's originally from Warwick, New York, which is about an hour north of New York City, and moved to Massachusetts to study theater arts, where he met the love of his life, who was also studying theater arts, and they've been together 23 years. Mike is a cat enthusiast, and maybe some of you have learned that already, but he's turned his interest, his love of cats into a side gig up in Massachusetts, and I understand it's continuing here in the Roanoke Valley.
Hey,
Mike takes care of folks' cats in their homes while they're away. Also, Mike is a diehard baseball fan and a New York Mets fan. And he cites one of the reasons that they moved to Roanoke, in addition to it's cheaper than Boston, is the numerous minor league baseball teams that are here. And in his free time, Mike enjoys the outdoors and the hiking and camping opportunities that the Roanoke area offers. And when he's feeling a little adventuresome, even some whitewater rafting. And Mike's looking forward to getting involved in the Kiwanis Club in numerous ways. He's mentioned the Fun Committee. So Lois, if you're out there, you got another one. Nature Park, Carol, and the Business Outreach, to name a few. Anyway, thank you, and please welcome me in introducing Mike. Welcoming me.
Okay, if y'all would please turn and face me. Michael and Melissa, you've indicated a desire to join the Kiwanis Club of Roanoke and become an active member. You've received a thorough orientation talking about what's expected of you and what you can expect from us. And we're glad to welcome you into our membership ranks. I have some work gloves for each of you. Not baseball gloves, Mike, but these gloves will come in handy as we do our service projects. We have a lot of service projects. I'll bet you would. When you put your hand in these gloves, when you put your middle finger in, I want you to think about the big things we do for the less fortunate in our community. And with your ring finger, it signifies the circle of friends that you're going to meet and make in this Kiwanis Club. Our middle finger stands above the others on our hand, and that means that this Kiwanis Club stands above and the other service organizations in the valley that you could have joined. We're glad you're with the Kiwanis Club of Roanoke. Our index finger points the way to a better community through our service projects. And when we finish a service project, what do? We like to give a thumbs up, right? Okay, so I got for each of you a little swag bag that has your new member badge, your Kiwanis pin, directory. There's also some information about a 501c3 foundation that supports this club. It's the Kiwanis Foundation of Roanoke, and we hope that you'll be generous and support the foundation with your tax deductible contributions, because the foundation supports the service budget of this club. There you go, Michael. Let's everyone please stand, put your fingers and hands together, and welcome Melissa Wilson and Michael Francis. Good to have you. Good to have you.
I'd say Don's pretty good on the fly. Yeah. And I was really starting to like Michael until I heard he's a Mets fan. I'm a Phillies fan, Michael. We're bitter about last night. Wonderful. It's very exciting to have new members join our club. And that's really what our membership Fill the Chairs initiative is all about. You know, bring your friends, bring people, you know, to come and join the meeting. And once you join a meeting, you'll get a feel for what we do, and sharing the K is a lot easier for us. All right, we have some announcements. You all should have received an email about signing up for committees or removing yourself from a committee. We do have sign up information on the tables as well, possibly. You did receive an email from John about it, so if you want to stay on a committee, you need to let John and Joyce know. If you want to remove yourself from a committee, you need to let John and Joyce know, because we're working on the directory. So for the directory, please make sure you have the correct contact information in the directory, and that can be your work or your home, whatever you prefer. Just make sure it's up to date for us. And we also would like up-to-date photos. If you need help with that, Don Witt, our photographer, can help you get a new photo. Okay, and then our installation event. So this is a really important event. I get to turn in my crown. September 24th is a Wednesday. We will not have our normal luncheon meeting. We're going to have a dinner meeting installation here in Charter Hall. It begins at 5:30. We're going to have heavy hors d'oeuvres, wine and beer. There's no extra charge for full members. If you're a virtual member or you bring a guest, it's $15 in addition. And we're going to install all of our new officers and directors for that. You do have sign-ups on the table. They look like this. So please put your name down, and we'd love to have guests. So please feel free to bring a spouse or a friend or a colleague to it. And John can bill you for that as well. Okay. Our Environment Committee is going to meet today in this space at 1:35, directly following our meeting. Courtney Plaster is here today to lead that meeting. You also have information about the Mill Mountain Theater Social coming up. That's September 18th. And that is a regular occurrence with us. We're doing it a little bit early this year because we want to catch the show, $1 Million Quartet. Are you going to be in it, Larry? Okay. Sign-up blocks are on the table. And again, please, we encourage you to bring a guest to that. It's a really fun event, and we will have the reception ahead of time as well. Okay, next up, I'm going to ask Chris Rouse to come up. He wants to say a few words about our service leadership programs.
Thank you, President Jean. How's everybody today? What a great day to be a Kiwanian. I'm going to try to make this quick. I've got about 5 minutes worth of items here. So first, I want to again thank Jean for the opportunity. And many of you know that Keith Hartman was the individual running the SLP program. I took over when he transferred his membership to the Botetourt Club. And I'm really excited about this as a former Key Clubber myself. So I also have some other thank yous to Keith. Keith left this program in really good shape. He spent a lot of time achieving his key performance indicators, and he also did a really good job of documenting our best practices. So this has made it very easy for me to slide into this role. And I'm also very grateful to two people. I think one of them's here today, Ken Briggs. Ken, where are you? Can you please stand up? Ken Briggs and Reef Kessler have both agreed to be our senior advisors to the SLP committees. So let's give them a round of applause. Both these gentlemen have a long history with the SLP, spent some time with me a while ago, giving me a good introduction, and Jean gave me a nice indoctrination with all the data and information that her and Keith had put together. So again, thank you to those wonderful people. So what is SLP? We have two main components. One is called the Phoenix Star Action Club. How many people know what that is? All right, a lot of folks. So real briefly, this Phoenix Star Action Club started in 2010. It's a group of about 15 members. These members actually have brain injuries. They are also supported by 3 of our Kiwanis, and we're going to ask these people to stand. First, the lead advisor is Mike Loveman. I don't think I've seen Mike today. Bert Boyd is here. Bert, please stand. And Randy Myers. Let's give these guys a round of applause. Oh, I guess Mike is at the beach, so hopefully he's having a good time. I'd also like you to know that this group meets twice a month typically. I think we took August off, but typically meet twice a month, and it's at the Blue Ridge Center for Independent Living. And it's quite a group. They get involved in a number of different community service projects throughout the year at places like Second Helpings, the thrift store, that's what that is, Kiwanis Nature Park, local greenways, Salvation Army Kennel Ringers, and also our very own KPAD, our Kiwanis Pancake and Auction Day. So let's hear it. I know Robbie is part of that group. Let's hear it for Robbie and all of his colleagues. Thanks for being here today, Robbie. Next, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the other component here. It's Key Club. How many people know what Key Club is? Okay. How many people were Key Clubbers? Oh, wow. Okay. So was I in upstate New York. It was actually a life-changing experience. So I'd love to talk to other former Key Clubbers and see what your experiences were like. Most people know that this is really for high school students. And just like us, it gets them involved in service projects. We're very fortunate that from time to time, the Key Clubbers come to this meeting and tell us what they're up to. Some of the clubs are large, some of the clubs are small, but one thing they have in common is they're all very active. So I'm going to introduce our Key Club advisors. And these Key Club advisors actually work directly with faculty advisors at the different schools. So I'm going to call on Larry Cuffle to stand up. Larry is responsible for Cave Spring, and please stay standing. Kevin Arita from Hidden Valley. I don't see John here. John is responsible for Northside. And then what about Alex Barge? I saw Alex. Okay, Alex over there on the IT. Alex has taken over responsibility for Patrick Henry. Thank you for that. Also, Nancy Horn. Is Nancy Horn here today? Nancy's responsible for Roanoke Catholic. And then lastly, Joe Gaither. I know Joe is at the North Carolina mountains right now. So he is responsible for William Fleming. Let's hear it for all these great leaders. Their objective is to try to really connect with the faculty advisors and attend meetings, offer advice and counsel. And so I want to just say thank you to all of you guys and ladies for doing everything you've done to make this just such a great program. Now, what are we doing in the future? We are with Ken and Reese's help and all the advisors, we're really trying to figure out how we can take this to the next level. So here are a few things that we're looking at doing. One is we like to add another Kiwanian advisor to each of the key clubs. And the real focus on that is to help us with our depth and continuity. Each of the individual advisors are doing a great job, but we felt like it would give the key clubbers another person, another face, different set of experiences, things of that nature. Also, Circle K. This is for college students. We're trying to reactivate our partnership with Virginia Western, and we're also in conversation with folks at Hollins University, seeing if they'll come on board as a first-time Circle K group. Third, we're exploring the possibility of a new action club with Beth Woodrum. Beth was a former speaker here about 3 weeks ago, and she represents Chris's Coffee and Custard. They're, I'm sure you all know, they're having a new building built in Southwest, and it's going to be very exciting. They'll have a large conference room and give us the opportunity to partner with them and hopefully start a new club sometime in the new year, because we're very busy right now. All right, and we're also in conversation with Milton Hardy. Milton, as you know, works for the city of Roanoke, and he and I are talking about a way to restart what we call a builders club. This is for 6 to 11-year-olds, and again, all about service projects. And we're going to try to do it community-wide. And we're looking at a model that Gene found from some Kiwanians in New Jersey, Pleasant Ridge, New Jersey, Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I think that's what it is. They have a model that works well in Point Pleasant. So we're going to study that, take a look at it, and see if there's a way for us to make that work here in Roanoke. All right, so lastly, I wanted to invite everybody to our upcoming SLP meeting. So on September 17th, after our Kiwanis meeting that day, we'll meet right over here, and anybody is welcome to join us. And I'd love to especially get some of the new Kiwanians, hint, hint, to participate in the SLP club. So please sign up on your table. Thank you very much. You all have a great rest of the day.
So much, Chris. That was very comprehensive, and I think some of our longtime members may have even learned some new information. That was really great. Thank you. And, you know, these service leadership clubs are really important because they're really a pipeline to our Kiwanis Club. You know, we are providing leadership opportunities for young people, providing ways for them to become involved in their community and become civic leaders in their own right. And that's exactly who we want to grow up and be a Kiwanis member, whether it's here or wherever they relocate in the future. Okay, we have brag bucks coming up. Don Witt, you gonna still do a brag? Anybody else want to do a brag? Sherry or Dave Hartman? For our guests, brag bucks are an opportunity to share something personal or share some information with the club and make a donation to our foundation, which supports our service projects.
That's $2. $2? Is that what it is now?
Hey, I want to just brag on this club. I mean, it was announced, Gene announced that we were the top seller of tickets for the Ducky Derby. Even despite that somebody dropped $1,000 check at the last minute, we still built it. And I mean, along with that, our division 15, exceeded all the other divisions by over $1,000. And there are 20 divisions in our district, so that was really good. So I want to express my thanks for you and for your amazing support. I'm really proud of our club and what you all have done. While none of you won any prizes this time, you're still making a difference, and supporting these 11 trauma hospitals, pediatric trauma hospitals, really makes a difference, and it's a victory that you all should be
proud of. Thank you.
You'll stay with me. Teddy. See, there's the mic.
Good afternoon. I'm David Hartman. As you know, I'm Vice President. And because I'm Vice President, I've been in charge of speakers this year. And I just wanted to say with Lee here how impressed I am with Lee Learman's involvement in getting speakers from the medical community. Lee, thank you so much for your efforts this month.
Okay, Greg, I'm gonna sneak in here. What is on Don Witt? Who being elected as foundation president is no small deal. So, you know, Don helps us in so many ways, but we're really proud to have you be foundation president, Don. So let's hear it for Don Witt. Another quick brag to be built for is on Nature Park helpers. Recently, we had Chris Rouse teaming up with Jason Pop, tackling those weeds yet again. So thank you, guys.
Hello, Guy Bird here. Just wanted to remind you that the Adult Care Center Golf Classic will be held on September 15th. And it's coming up for fairly soon. Any golfers in the room, get in touch with me and I'll take you through the steps. Love to have you join us.
Gary, thank you for that brag. I'd like to add one person's name to that, Bert Boyd. Bert was there with Jason and I to help pull and cut some of those wonderful weeds at the pollinator garden. Thank you.
John Montgomery doing a quick brag, working closely with all of you in my role as secretary treasurer. It's a little dangerous, perhaps setting a bad precedent to brag on an individual member, but I can't resist. Lee Learman, I want to piggyback on what David said about what a nice job you've done as program chair. And I want you to know that Lee Learman does a lot of things behind the scenes. I mean, he does have a pretty important job, dean of the medical school, and but not too busy to drive by my house and deliver some KPAD money while I was mowing the grass. That really impressed me. And the way he's been so easy to work with, not only on programs, but interactions. And those of you who haven't got a pleasure to know Lee, I hope you will, because you really bring a sense of dignity to the club. I'm glad that you add to the dignity the club already has. Maybe that's a better way to say it. And I couldn't resist when I learned that he was a McDonald's employee. That's really what won me over, because I was a McDonald's employee a few years before you were, and I got to tell you that shaped my work ethic considerably. Looks like it's done all right for your work ethic too. In fact, one of my first days at McDonald's, I was pretty much a doubly do-right kind of person. I know that surprises those of you that see how suave I can be, but the manager, who's John Francis, by the way, who became a bank executive in the Roanoke Valley, who passed away pretty recently. Some of you may know him. He was a college student. I was a high school student. And he was like, who wants to clean the parking, a privileged job. Who wants to clean the parking lot? And I said, I'll do it. And of course, everyone else was tying their shoes, and we had a clean parking lot. And then later, when the movie came out on Ray Kroc, I learned he was a stickler for clean. Now, I didn't volunteer for that because I knew Ray Kroc believed in it, but it worked out all right for me too. I wanted to throw that in. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, everyone. Those were great. Okay, next up, we're going to have our speaker. So it's my privilege to ask Lee to come back up to the podium, and he will introduce Dr. Nick Ryder to us.
Well, thanks, Gene. Before we get to the introduction, and I just have some words of gratitude. Before I get to the words of gratitude, John, I have a question for you. So, there are a lot of McDonald's all over the country. And as you start to work there as a teenager with acne in front of the fryer with all the grease coming at you, it's a really important growing experience there. So when you get rotated around and you're breaking down the restaurant at the end, you're cleaning all the stuff that's up the grill. There was this one part of the grill that was always the last thing we cleaned, and it had a name. And I didn't know whether in California it had the same name that you encountered. It's the grease trap. You're taking it over to the back and you try to get that hot water to melt it down. It was called Big Bertha. And I didn't know whether that was what you guys called it too. This is really important.
I understand you were being on that, but perhaps we'll have to have an iced tea and discuss that.
Oh, we shall do that. Well, thank you so much. And I wanted to thank Dave Hartman as well, not only for the unexpected and wonderful brag bucks, but it was such a pleasure to be invited back because we had done this a couple of years before and taken August and putting together some speakers. And we tried to not repeat the same content. So Reese asked me to come back next August with a group of new speakers. So if anyone has ideas on what they'd like to hear about, please do let me know. But we saved the best for last. Yes, we heard from Lisa Yerk about well-being. That was really cool to hear about how we have to refuel ourselves in healthcare to be able to provide the best care to patients, take care of ourselves. We heard about what's going on in the medical school with plans for growth. We heard about how we're trying to create workforce development pathways from our medical school through the residency programs and trying hard to help keep our talent here in Virginia as well. But I know you're probably all more interested in hearing about AI. Okay, it's rapidly evolving and disruptive technology. And to say that Nick has all the answers, well, he does, but he can't share them all with you today, unfortunately. So let me tell you a little bit about our speaker today. He joined our medical school in January 2024 as a key leader in building our Department of Health Systems and Implementation Science. He's a full professor. He's board certified in allergy immunology and in clinical informatics, and also serves as the Associate Chief Medical Information Research Officer at Carilion Clinic. But before coming to Roanoke, Nick spent 8 years at Baylor College of Medicine and Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, where he served as a clinical chief, training program director, research center director, and a leader in biomedical informatics. Most recently, he chaired the clinical informatics department at Liberty University's College of Osteopathic Medicine before joining us. Nick and his wife, Tanya, live in Forest, Virginia with their children. Zachary is a sophomore at the University of Lynchburg, and Vivian is an 11th grader at Jefferson Forest High School. Their family also includes 2 dogs, 2 cats, and even an apiary. I'm not sure how many bees that takes to make an apiary, but is it thousands? Hundreds, thousands? Hundreds of bees, okay. Nick brings great expertise in caring for patients with complex immunologic diseases, along with his advanced skills in data science to optimize patient care. And when he's not, AI can lead to breakthroughs in patient-level outcomes.
Dr. Lehman, thank you for that kind introduction. I actually was stung several times this morning as I was transferring bees from one facility to another. So I've got a little wound here, but it's fine. The sad thing is that honeybees die when they sting, so that's a bummer. Well, I just want to thank you for the invitation. It's really wonderful to be here. I felt the warmth even being escorted in from the first floor by Chris and Fred, who helped me come in the back route and find this lovely facility. I definitely sense the warmth and a tremendous sense of humor that this group has. So it's really fantastic. So we'll talk a little bit about AI and how it's transforming, healthcare, in particular for the types of patients that I care for. But first, I have a personal tie to the Kiwanis Club, and this is my dad on the right, and you can see this is March 6, 1976. So this is the bicentennial, and this is the Kiwanis Club of Loyalsock Township in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I was born in Washington, D.C., but I was raised in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And one of their big fundraisers back in the day was this chicken and biscuit breakfast that they held every year. But of course, this was a special one, being the bicentennial. And so my dad served as the president of the Loyal Stock Kiwanis Club, I want to say in 1973, and served and was a member of the club for over a few decades while living there. My parents now live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, so I'm really glad to be closer to them, having moved from Houston. So little personal tie. The other thing is you probably can't really see it well in that picture, but there are these beautiful mountains in the background. So again, growing up in the mountains of Pennsylvania, I grew to not only love the outdoor and rural spaces, which is one of the reasons I'm very, very excited to have moved from Houston to the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, and of course the New River Valley now, not being far from you all in Forest and being in Roanoke a couple days a week at least. But you know, there I also grew to deeply appreciate Philadelphia sports. So like Gene, I am hoping the Phillies will actually beat the Mets at least once this year. My apologies, Michael. Give us one, please. And was it Harry who graduated from the Ohio State University? I am very hopeful that this is the year for my Nittany Lions. So we'll see. We'll see. So we'll talk a little bit about AI, where it's come from, where it is today, where it's showing value in healthcare. And then as someone who focuses on the care of patients who have often genetic defects of the immune system that renders them susceptible to infections, sometimes very severe and catastrophic, unusual patterns of inflammation and so forth. We'll talk a little bit about the work we've done in this space with others around the world to improve care for these patients, and then talk a little bit about the big picture in the health system and conclude. So busy slide, please don't memorize it. But what I think is really interesting is if you look through the history of time, as humans, we've always looked for ways to build machines, use tools to help us understand the world, whether it's an abacus or computers, early computers like ENIAC back in the 40s, to ChatGPT now. We've had this long history of developing technology. And, you know, while I would say, wow, AI is actually relatively new to healthcare. But in reality, AI has this history in healthcare that actually dates back into the 50s. And there were these three epochs where machines were built, rules to say, okay, I built this tool that's going to help someone make a diagnosis. And if the patient has this set of problems, maybe this is the underlying diagnosis. And these were like expert machines, kind of classic machine learning was epoch one, spanning from the 1950s up until the 2000s when deep neural networks were developed, and even up to 2018, 2022, when the GPT, generative pre-trained transformers, the chat GPTs of the world. Who's using ChatGPT now by show of hands? Yeah, I see a number of hands going up. Yeah, I think it has value. It definitely isn't perfect, but we're seeing penetration and this type of technology in healthcare more and more. So some of the goal is that healthcare is so expensive, especially in the U.S., right? We clearly need to move the needle on patient safety and improving outcomes. We've got a lot of work to do there, ultimately, to serve patients optimally. And so the question is, can technology like this actually improve outcomes for patients? Can it help support healthcare providers? And can it get to the ultimate goal, which is improving quality and duration of life? And so, this is a nice review that was published just a couple of years ago, and it kind of exemplifies how these models can ingest or take in all kinds of data, from spoken word to visual images, x-rays, CT images, free text, the biomedical literature, genetics data, and then pull it together into a data repository where statistically it can help maybe dialogue with a clinician where there might be a lack of specialists or maybe even a lack of primary care, but advancing care for patients, supporting and augmenting, where I think the A should be more emphasized as the augmented intelligence, augmenting the work of the human. But this is a nice depiction of where we kind of hope and are starting to see AI penetrate in healthcare. So, high level, where is it improving care or making kind of penetrating into healthcare? Certainly increasing patient engagement, actually making the time that patients engage with the patient portal more valuable, improving clinical documentation. Thankfully, no one has to read my handwriting anymore. So we have the electronic health record there. AI can help pull data from clinical notes to generate new notes, and then with the supervision of a human, expedite and make our time more efficient, and really help us focus on looking at patients, taking care of patients, and not writing notes. Automating redundant tasks like insurance prior authorizations, really kind of automating the health record so that the ways that I interact with the software are learned through an AI interface, and then the AI could then allow those tabs in the electronic health record or those windows in the electronic health record kind of come to the fore without me having to rummage around so much to find that. So these are some of the ways that AI is customizing the electronic health record to support patient care. And then ultimately the goal is personalizing patient care. Each and every one of us are an individual. So we need systems that don't treat us like we're all the same, because we each have our own social, biological, cultural, spiritual elements that are critically important, and they do roll up to our individual preferences and health outcomes. So again, how can technology help clinicians be more human, drive more humanistic care, and really enable patients to have more value? And so just going to show a few slides of some examples and some literature. This is an example of a nice paper that they piloted the use of AI to facilitate responses by clinicians as patients were sending messages in through the patient portal through the electronic health record. And what they did is, instead of the patient having to wait for me to read the message, and sometimes there are a number to get through and we try really hard, but we get backed up, the AI would actually generate a response to the patient. It didn't send the response. The clinician had to review the note that the AI had generated. And sometimes the clinician would say, hogwash, I'm writing my own response to the patient. I don't like what the AI said. Sometimes the clinician would say, yes, it's pretty good. I'm going to tweak a couple words, but send. You saved me probably 5 minutes of typing. And then in other instances, they felt that it did a pretty good job. But at the end of the day, this study showed that the AI, while not perfect, could reduce some of the burden of clinical documentation, more expeditiously get responses to patients as they were sending them in through the electronic health record. Another question from a healthcare provider standpoint is, could it reduce burnout? Burnout's a big issue in many fields, certainly in healthcare. Kind of as this scale and balance is showing, you kind of hope that maybe AI would facilitate redundant tasks and automate some of those things, to help us synthesize information and make decisions more effectively, and even maybe do forecasting to say, hey, okay, maybe my patient's doing great today, but through the lens of, distilling a large amount of data and forecasting forward, is my patient going to have a problem in 3 months, 6 months, and could there be something that I possibly do about that? Of course, together with the patient, we would love that to avoid pitfalls. And then on the other side of the scale, avoiding the negative consequences of AI, and that is, does it just cause a different type of cognitive load and burnout? Like, we don't want that. We don't want to create new reasons for burnout, new barriers. We really want to see technology improve, or would it, take jobs away? That's a big concern. So these are all things that have to be thought about and navigated, in addition to the ethics of AI and how it performs or maybe doesn't perform well on certain populations. Some of the applications for AI include telemedicine. In this case, some examples of the tele-ICU and machine learning predictions through AI to support patient care. I think one of the exciting aspects here is you might have a human intensivist specialist who is supervising remotely a number of medical ICUs or surgical ICUs from around a region. And this could be a technological solution that is liaising with an AI that can help clinical decision support and expedite decisions by a single clinician who's directing different teams that are geographically disparate that could potentially solve a gap in subspecialist coverage, which we see throughout the US, in particular in rural spaces. Similarly, telecardiology, using AI to more efficiently and effectively analyze electrocardiograms, teleoncology, solving again for some of the gaps in care where there might not be clinicians available to care for patients, thus requiring patients to travel great distances, and even facilitating care coordination. Telepsychiatry, again, augmenting virtual evaluations. This is another area where we see significant lack and gap in specialist care, and then expediting diagnosis of stroke in the pre-hospital setting. So these are all some of the, I think, pilot studies, proof of concepts that are being evaluated for AI's application directly to patient care, but certainly have not become the mainstay yet. I think that this is also an interesting publication that looked at using AI by a single hand surgeon to really kind of, again, augment and improve clinical documentation. This was a publication that described 139 de-identified encounters, and basically they looked at how the surgeon coded, that is, billed for their procedures, and then used an untrained large language model called Gemini to see how well it predicted what diagnostic codes should have been submitted to the insurance company. And it did pretty well. I got about 70, almost 70%, 68% were in concordance with the surgeon. It undercoded 7% of the time and overcoded 22% of the time. But by and large, even without any training, it got, it did better than a coin flip. So I think this is an example of an application of AI that if we got it right and we tuned it, we could let the surgeon do more surgery and do less paperwork, and then ultimately take care of more patients over time. That would be the hope. Another busy slide. Of course, as many of you know, we're all judged, as we should be, as health systems, in terms of the quality of the care that we provide, and that is, how our outcomes and costs over time. And of course, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services require that we submit information to them so that we can be reimbursed for care. Well, that requires a multi-step process that we don't always get right. We try, but this was a proof of concept that looked at using an AI to really scan electronic health record data, extract CMS relevant outcomes, and then report them automatically to CMS. And again, it did pretty well. It was compared to human doing this manual process, and agreed with the human, this AI, 90% of the time. And in the 10% of cases where there was discordance, found that actually 4 of those were human errors upon kind of looking back at both the human and the AI's analysis. So again, using AI to automate tasks. So this just gets me to make sure I'm doing okay on time here. What I do, and that is take care of patients with primary immune disease. This is a picture of a patient you've all heard of. His name is David Vetter. Do you know him by this name? You may not. How about the Bubble Boy? Yes, you know the Bubble Boy. David Vetter had primary immune disease, a condition called severe combined immune deficiency. Here he is at Texas Children's Hospital with the late William Scheer, who I had the privilege of working with for my first few years at Texas Children's. And David lived in this bubble for his first 12 years of life, ultimately making the decision that he did not want to live for the rest of his life in a bubble. He was given a bone marrow transplant, which sadly he died from complication resulting from that. But nonetheless, David, in his short years, taught the world a lot about primary immune disease, as did Dr. Scheer. We now know that these conditions number over 550, and they injure every part of the immune system, causing susceptibility to infections, inflammatory disease, even early onset and unusual hereditary forms of cancer. So one of the things we've been focusing on, and I'll share 3 aspects where we've been using AI to improve the care of these patients, is number one, many of these individuals come to diagnosis quite late, after 5, 10, sometimes 20 years of suffering. So one of the questions we asked was, could AI expedite the diagnosis of these patients? And this is just showing a schema where, using a 2-step AI pipeline, we can actually, using population-wide analysis, expedite the diagnosis by at least 3 years. And we can do that through using structured diagnostic codes, the laboratory data. We can also use natural language processing where we build AI that reads clinical notes. And even if we give clinical notes to the machine 3 years out from someone's ultimate diagnosis, it can ascertain that this individual is at high likelihood for having one of these diseases. We've also looked at some of the large language models that are already out there and available and asked the question, would they be suitable for helping make diagnosis and augment, say, clinicians in rural areas who don't have an immunologist right around the corner that they could phone? And in collaboration with a really wonderful team at Boston Children's, found that, there are a number of these models that actually not only get the diagnosis right when presented with a real world case, but provide helpful, concise recommendations. The last area that we focused on is facilitating AI adoption. Again, going back to my days in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, I have a real passion for rural spaces. I love the geography, love the people. I know there's a lot of challenges, but I want to be part of the solution to driving healthcare needs in these places. And of course, the Blue Ridge is incredible, lovely, and I love this region. So we built a team that does free virtual case consultation and education about these kinds of conditions to support rural primary care clinicians. And this is not only myself, but 2 colleagues, Dr. Lawrence and Dr. Borish, who are at the University of Virginia. One of my graduate students on the right there, Jacob Blachowicz, and a really talented nurse, Angie Tyree, who lives in Lynchburg. And so we've been about a little over a year old now. We've had a number of educational sessions. We've engaged folks from around the country and even around the world. And we're hoping to continue to advance both knowledge, education. And the big picture here is not, oh, this is a cool technology, but that this technology actually makes a difference and helps us learn with each iterative interaction with a patient in a health system. And this is the concept of a learning health system, that if you're seen in the health system, data is pulled into a knowledge repository, and then potentially AI and machine learning models could support your clinician to support better care with the next experience in the health system, make your care more valuable, make all of our care safer. And, ultimately, while we love building models, if we think only about AI and how cool AI is, and we don't think about the health system, and we don't make the health system suitable for the AI, then there's this discrepancy between what the model can do and what the health system can do. So we want to unite these two. So in summary, I think there's a lot of opportunity for AI in healthcare to bring value. Ultimately, it's the people and the workflows that are more important than the technology. Implementation has to happen, and this really does take a team. And then, of course, we want to sustain it and make sure that it does what it's always intended to do. With that, happy to take questions. And thank you so much for the opportunity to meet you all, be a part of this special community and your meeting today. Thanks for your time. Yes. Yeah, I think that's the hope for sure. And, thinking about, value being quality over costs, I think it has to be sustainable. And people are thinking about this. The research realm, it's more like what can be done, what's possible, but in true practice and implementation, I think this element of cost effectiveness has to be part of the ingredient in the mix that we consider. So, yeah, because health systems are pinched with narrow margins, and to have really expensive models that don't bring value and only bring cost, just not going to be sustainable. So absolutely, I think for these technologies to be useful, they're going to have to be cost effective. It's a great point you raise. Yes, yes, yes. Pleasure. Yeah, I love your question because I also think a lot about how little, even if I feel like I know a patient really well, and let's say they come and see me 3 or 4 times a year, in aggregate, I might spend 2 hours in a year seeing them. So really, how much do I know about them, right? So I think your point is brilliant. These kinds of models are very powerful at extracting concepts from spoken word or written text. And so I think the next frontier is ingesting data from wearables in the ways that we as patients would want to share that information, and then integrating that into the health record again to bring more value with our providers when we see them, in the clinics, because you're spot on, that there's so much richness in that information we're not capturing. Yes, sir. That's as much as I love technology, there's areas I just don't want it to be involved. I want that to be hard to catch that big fish. Honestly, I want it to be tough. But I think, look, I can probably plug information into an app and it'll tell me what fly to use at what time historically based on the temperature, the time of the year, the water temp, and when they last stocked and so forth. So there's probably an app for that too, sadly. Great. All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time and attention. Great talk.
Dr. Nick, come back up here for a minute. Thank you so much. I thought that was a wonderful program and great questions, everyone. And we have an honorarium that is going to go to the West End Center. Thank you. And I hope everybody knows that Williamsport is where the Little League Hall of Fame or Little League World Series takes place. All right. Next week, this is very important. We are not having a meeting. We're off for the Labor Day holiday. So hopefully you all can extend, those of you who are still working can extend your time off a little bit. And then we will re-adjourn in October. Thank you all for being here today and have a great week. We're coming back in September, not October.